Hello, and welcome to this presentation on Medicare fraud prevention. My name is Jody Delcier, and I'm with SHIBA of Lane County. According to Senior Medicare Patrol, Medicare loses an estimated $60 billion yearly due to fraud, errors, and abuse, though that number is impossible to measure. Today, we want to help you understand fraud and equip you with the tools you need to protect yourself. First, let me tell you a bit about SHIBA. Senior Health Insurance Benefits Assistance, or SHIBA, is a service that provides free and unbiased Medicare information to beneficiaries and their support system. It is funded by state and federal grants and has no incentive to sell clients on any particular plan. What we'll learn today: we'll define Medicare fraud, the types of Medicare fraud, how fraud impacts everyone, how to recognize red flags, we'll give you prevention tips, we'll teach you how to report Medicare fraud, and we'll test your knowledge. First, let's define Medicare fraud. Medicare fraud is when someone knowingly submits false claims or makes misrepresentations to obtain payments from Medicare. This includes billing for services not provided, misrepresenting dates, locations, and services, making offers of free services, identity theft, and kickbacks. We'll start with billing for services not provided. In this case, providers bill Medicare for services, tests, or procedures that were never performed. For example, a provider submits claims for a therapy session that the patient never received. As a result, Medicare funds are diverted to fraudulent claims, reducing resources for legitimate care, and the patient is wary to seek help when they need it. Next is misrepresenting dates, locations, and services. Providers could falsify details, such as changing dates, types, or locations of services in order to increase payment. For example, a clinic could bill Medicare for a more expensive procedure, for example, billing for a comprehensive exam instead of a basic checkup. As a result, this increases Medicare costs and may lead to unnecessary care being performed. Next is offers of quote-unquote free services. In this case, scammers offer free health screenings, medical devices, or other incentives in exchange for Medicare numbers. For example, a fraudster at a health fair promises a free genetic test, but uses that Medicare number for fraudulent billing. As a result, there may be identity theft and fraudulent charges on your account. Next is identity theft. Scammers steal Medicare numbers to file false claims or obtain medical services in your name. For example, a thief could use your Medicare number to get prescription drugs or medical equipment. This may result in denied claims for legitimate services due to incorrect records. And last is kickbacks. Providers or companies receive illegal payments in exchange for referring patients or prescribing certain medications. For example, a doctor could receive payment from a drug company to prescribe that medication even if it's not the best option for the patient. As a result, the patient receives suboptimal or unnecessary care. Let's test your knowledge. What type of fraud is this? You see an ad on Facebook offering COVID tests that are free to you. You just need to enter your Medicare number and they'll send it right away. A couple of weeks later, you get a few expired COVID tests in the mail, and later still you get a Medicare summary notice showing a service that you never received. This is offers of free services. Here's another scenario. What type of fraud is this? You get a phone call saying that you owe money to Medicare and they need your Medicare number immediately to resolve the issue. You give the caller your Medicare number and they let you know that there's been a mistake and actually your account is just fine. Later, you get a Medicare summary notice for supplies that you never requested. This is identity theft. Let's talk about how fraud has an impact on everyone. First, the cost to Medicare. Medicare loses an estimated $60 billion yearly due to fraud, abuse, and errors. When thieves steal from Medicare, there is less money for the health care that beneficiaries need. Medicare losing money to fraud and scams leads to increased premiums and out-of-pocket costs for all Medicare beneficiaries over time. There are also patient health risks. A compromised Medicare record might flag the patient as having already received a service, delaying legitimate care. Fraudulent medical equipment or prescription drug claims could lead to the distribution of expired, unsafe, or otherwise substandard items. Fraud can also cause provider and patient strain. Fraud damages the relationship between patients and legitimate providers. Healthcare providers spend time resolving fraudulent claims, and patients are less likely to seek care when they need it. Let's go through a scenario where we recognize some red flags. Jane, a 72-year-old retired teacher, received a call from someone posing as Medicare, offering her a free DNA test in exchange for her information. Trusting the caller, she shared her Medicare number, and months later, she noticed strange charges on her Medicare summary notice for tests that she never received. After contacting 1-800-Medicare, Jane discovered over $10,000 in false claims, causing delays in her legitimate coverage. Jane faced weeks of stress, countless hours on the phone, and anxiety over whether she would access the care that she needed. To make matters worse, the scammer also sold her information on the dark web, leading to additional financial threats. Jane spent weeks resolving the fraud with Medicare, hiring a credit monitoring service, and dealing with the stress of the situation. Though the fraud was eventually addressed, the emotional and financial strain left a lasting impact on Jane and her family. So let's talk about some of the red flags that we've seen here. First, unexpected calls or emails. In this case, someone asks for personal information claiming to be from Medicare, a doctor's office, or another government agency. They may impart a sense of urgency. Know that Medicare does not initiate calls or emails. They only communicate by snail mail unless you request otherwise. If this happens, hang up immediately and call 1-800-Medicare. Second is offers of free services. For example, someone at a health fair or event who offers to do a free health screening or give you free equipment or DNA testing in exchange for your Medicare number. This type of scam can also happen over the phone or online. Next is bills for services and supplies you didn't receive. A Medicare summary notice or explanation of benefits listing services, tests, or procedures that you didn't have done. A fraudulent provider submitted a fake claim to receive payments from Medicare. And fourth, unnecessary tests or procedures. This looks like a healthcare provider insisting on unnecessary tests, procedures, or treatments that you don't need or understand, often claiming Medicare will cover it anyway. This indicates that the provider wants to inflate their Medicare billing, decline services you don't feel comfortable with, even if they're covered. What can you do about it? First, keep your Medicare card and number secure. Treat it like you would treat your Social Security number or credit card information. In fact, you can keep your Medicare card at home unless you're actively going to the doctor's office. Next, avoid sharing information over the phone. If someone is calling you out of the blue, don't give out your information. Hang up and find a trustworthy number to call back to verify what they were asking for. Next, keep good notes. Bring a healthcare tracker or notebook to appointments. Keep notes about your conversations and services and include the date of service and the provider you received it from. Next, review your MSN, Medicare Summary Notice, or EOB, Explanation of Benefits. Check even for small procedures and transactions. Next, be cautious of unsolicited offers, especially if those offers are too good to be true. For example, free services, medical equipment, or tests in exchange for your Medicare number. Let's talk about how to report Medicare fraud. First, gather your paperwork, review your Medicare summary notice or explanation of benefits, and take note of the services that you do not recognize. Next, talk to your provider. If the discrepancy is with a provider you know or are familiar with, reach out to that provider first to clarify what might have happened. Take notes and add them to your paperwork. Next, reach out to SMP. This is optional but recommended. SMP, or Senior Medicare Patrol, will set you up with an advocate who can guide you through the process of reporting fraud. Next, work with authorities and experts. You can contact Medicare at 1-800-Medicare or Medicare.gov, the Federal Trade Commission or FTC at identitytheft.gov, the Oregon Department of Justice at 1-877-877-9392, or the Senior Law Service at 541-402-2241. Next, monitor and follow up. You can do this on your own or with the help of your SMP advocate. First, track the status of the fraud report, then follow up with Medicare and law enforcement to ensure the claims are reversed or resolved. And consider setting up credit monitoring to protect against identity theft. You can also set up a fraud alert or credit freeze. The next thing to do is to be informed. Knowledge is power. Now that you know the basics, spread the word. Tell family and friends what you've learned today. Stay up to date. SMP's website is rich with information about the latest scams. They also have a newsletter that you can subscribe to be a step ahead. Let's test your knowledge. What should you do if someone calls you claiming to be from Medicare and asks for your Medicare number? A. Provide the number immediately to avoid losing your benefits. B. Hang up and report the call to Medicare or Senior Medicare Patrol. C. Ask them for their name and send them your number later. The answer is B. Hang up and report the call to Medicare or Senior Medicare Patrol. Next, what is a common red flag for Medicare fraud? A. Receiving a bill for services you did not receive. B. A vendor offering free medical equipment in exchange for your Medicare number. C. A healthcare provider pressuring you into unnecessary tests or procedures. Or D. All of the above. The answer is D. All of the above. Next, what is the best way to review your Medicare charges? A. Wait until the end of the year and check your account. B. Regularly review your Medicare Summary Notice, MSN, or Explanation of Benefits, EOB. Or C. Call Medicare and ask them to monitor your account for you. The answer is B. Regularly review your Medicare Summary Notice or Explanation of Benefits. True or false? It's okay to share your Medicare number with a vendor offering free services at a health fair. The answer is false. True or false? Medicare will never call you to ask for your Medicare number. True. You notice a $300 charge on your Medicare Summary Notice for a medical test you don't remember having. What should you do? A. Ignore it. It's probably an error that will resolve itself. B. Call the provider listed to clarify the charge and report it to Medicare if it's fraudulent. C. Pay the bill and assume Medicare will reimburse you later. The answer is B. Call the provider listed to clarify the charge and report it to Medicare if it's fraudulent. We're just about wrapped up. Let's talk about the key takeaways from this presentation. First, and most importantly, is to protect your Medicare number. Stay vigilant for fraud and scams, and know how to report suspicious activity. Finally, consider sharing what you've learned, whether it's sending this presentation to somebody else or just sharing some of the information that you've learned in conversation with your friends and loved ones. That's it for this presentation. Thank you for watching. If you live in Lane County, please feel free to get in touch at willamalane.org/SHIBA.